Right, there we go. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Educator Collaborative. This is session 11, I believe. So I'm Dana Stachowiak, and I am with the Educator Collaborative as a consultant. And I have the honor of introducing your presenters for today. So I'm going to start with just talking to you really briefly about something that kind of hit home when I was talking to the presenter about how I stalked her a little bit to get to know her a little bit better for this introduction today. But something I read just on Thursday on a friend of mine, he posted on his Facebook page, and I'm just going to read it right here. He said, 13 hours today in interaction with 9 different parents. You ask me why I put in these long hours. You don't see the eyes, the faces, the smiles that parents have when they learn their child is growing and that their child's teacher is willing to help them grow too. And I don't know a single educator out there who wouldn't say the same thing. And it was so timely that he just put this on his Facebook page. But I don't know anybody that teaches that wouldn't say the same thing, that they not only want to help their students grow and learn, but they also want to help the parents too. But more often than not, what happens in our schools is that we just aren't able to offer substantial or even adequate support for our families to grow and learn together, especially in the area of literacy. And that's where your presenters today come into play. That's where the National Center for Families Learning shines, providing families with the opportunity to learn and the ability to learn and grow together. This amazing organization serves as an umbrella organization offering literacy resources, tools, and professional development to organizations that serve families across the country. I'm really honored to introduce you to the presenter, to at least the main presenter, or I don't even know if you're the main presenter, but a presenter today for this session. It's Emily Kirkpatrick, and Emily is the Vice President of NCFL, where her devotion and passion for family literacy can be seen in the many initiatives and partnerships that she spearheads and fosters. She's just, I have just met her briefly, but in reading about her and knowing and seeing her work and the work that I do, she's just an amazing individual. An example of Emily's amazingness can be seen in the incredibly popular app that she created called Wonderopolis. And if you haven't downloaded that, you need to do it as soon as this session is over. I'm not an app person, but I have downloaded this app and I love it. And I especially love it because it's a safe app and it doesn't ask you for many permissions, which I really, really appreciate. But anyway, Wonderopolis is fantastic. I know you all are going to really enjoy and greatly benefit from this session. It's called Family Engagement and Literacy, Engaging Learners Across Generations, K-12. So please welcome with me Emily, who is joined today by Brittany Howell and Patricia Lovett, who are also of the NCFL.
Thank you, Dana. Hello, everybody. Happy Saturday. We're thrilled to be with you. As mentioned, this is the session known as Family Engagement and Literacy, Engaging Learners Across Generations. We're here to share a little bit about our work and also break some of our content into 3 tips in 2 different categories for you so that you walk away with content today that you can use starting Monday, or if you're in contact with your students over the weekend, you can use it immediately. NCFL is a nonprofit organization, so we're not about selling anything except the goodness of literacy across generations. We know that a secret sauce to helping parents learn is often tapping into the knowledge that when they thrive, their children thrive. As goes the parent, so goes the child, we like to say. You can learn more about our work on our website, familieslearning.org, where we're happy to interact with you, share all of our resources with you. We believe in the power of a teacher to inspire not only the students in front of the classroom every day, Monday through Friday, but that students, parents, grandparents, aunts and uncles, all dimensions of that child's life. And we know that you do that all the time. You know, a student's learning needs aren't limited to their own, is the way, we think about things. And we're here to offer some tips and input from our work all across the country. And again, we just can't say enough about your dedication, again, to the students in front of you every day, and also to their many needs that extend beyond their own. to break into our first piece of content that spans parent learning needs as well as ESL considerations, I have a fantastic colleague to introduce to you, Patricia Levitt. Patricia holds specialty in English as a second language and is in and out of literacy programs, K-12 settings all across the United States, from San Pedro, California to the South Bronx in New York. Patricia's joining us in the spirit of today in her pajamas to bring you her very best. Please welcome Patricia Levitt.
Thank you, Emily, for that introduction. I was very excited about the idea of PD in my PJs, so that's how I am joining you today. And also, we thought that we would take kind of a different approach to kind of talking through those tips that Emily mentioned. So I will be sharing an activity that I'm sure many of you are familiar with, which is brown bag, or today white lunch bag, get to know you. So I have 3 items in my bag that really kind of illustrate what I would like to share with you today about working with families. The first is a mix for cornbread, and you'll see that there's a box here that has some ingredients inside, but there's also a list of ingredients that need to be added. And this is really what we can think of whenever you're working with families. There are things that families really need to be the best support that they can for a child in your classroom. We know that by and large families want their children to succeed and they want to do the right things to make that happen, but that doesn't always mean that they have the tools to do that. So we'll talk a little bit about those needs. The other part is really understanding that families have a lot of skills and a lot of things that they're doing with their children. Even though those don't always conform to what we as an education system expect or want to have happening, sometimes they're even better than our expectations could possibly be. And so first, let's talk just a little bit about those needs. As I said, parents want their children to be successful, and they want to know the right ways to do that. And as teachers, we have a lot of strategies and skills that we can share with those parents. I always think about a teacher that I met in Oklahoma who was talking about a father that came to her kindergarten class regularly with his little girl. And through the course of the year and knowing the father more, what she learned was that this father didn't know how to read. But he knew it was going to be critical to his daughter's success for her to learn to read, and he knew it was important for him to be able to help with that. So he was coming to kindergarten every day to learn to read so he could support his child. You may not always have situations as dramatic as that, but even, one message that really gets through to a lot of parents is it's important to read to your child. We don't always necessarily in the parent role know what that looks like. We don't necessarily know you should stop and ask questions. Give your child an opportunity to imagine what's going to happen next, to wonder what the end of the story is going to be. And as teachers, we can help guide parents in those types of strategies so they're ready to implement them at home. In looking at the other side of the recipe, the things that the parents already have and are doing, as I said, these may not always fit the mold of the parent-teacher conference or PTO meetings, but parents have skills and knowledge that we consider through the topic of funds of knowledge that are very real world and that come from their experiences. And these are transmitted generation to generation. One example of this that I frequently share with teachers and how to make really strong use of those funds of knowledge that your parents have is my own mother. When I was young, my mother was a mail carrier. And so when we got to the point in school where we were learning about sending letters and addressing envelopes, instead of spending the weekend researching how to do that and why, the teacher invited my mother to come speak to the class. And this is a really important experience, I can say, as the student, because not only do I know and does my mother know that this teacher really cares about me. She knew that's what my mother did. She was willing to open her classroom to my mother. But also, for the teacher, this gave a really good opportunity to save some valuable lesson planning time, because she was inviting someone in who had that fund of knowledge and could share it with the class. And I really encourage you, I'll talk a little more about engaging families at the end. I really encourage you to think of how you can draw on the funds of knowledge that your families have, the things that they're already doing with their children, the fact that they're already reading with their children at home, and help them to incorporate that in their child's education to provide a stronger experience. My second item is one that I really love. It's a little fairy, which seems somewhat insignificant, but this was part of a quinceañera invitation from one of my students. And the reason I share that is to explain how important it is to really get to know your families. For real, get to know your families. Not to just stop at the surface, but go beyond what a questionnaire at the beginning of the school year is going to provide you. Go beyond what the school secretary is going to give you, and really get to know those families. Ask questions. Set up a meeting with them. Parents aren't always interested or excited to come to the school at the beginning of the year, particularly if they've had a less than favorable experience with that themselves in the past. And so I encourage you to think creatively. Maybe set up a meeting at your local coffee house or in the park, or if you're a community school, have a day when several teachers get together and have an open house and parents can stop through and meet their children's teacher. That initial contact is so important when you want to build a strong, real relationship with families. As you're doing this, it's really important to understand that you have each child for a very short amount of time, but that parent has had them since they were born. There's a lot of information that they can share with you, in addition to you sharing that you really care about that child and you want to make them a part of your classroom community, and their parents are important and that their voice is important to your class. So as you're doing that, really think about how you can make sure that parents feel that they're a part of the school. And this may go beyond just your own classroom, looking at how welcoming your school environment is. Through my own experience, through talking with teachers, as Emily said, across the country, I really can say that the benefits of building strong relationships with your families that are authentic and really relevant relationships about their child will yield great benefits. For one, you just get to meet such wonderful people. And, through the years, I've had families who invite me to quinceañeras, who invite me to come to their home for meals. I've had new moms who bring their babies to school when they're a week old because they know that I've been excited the whole time that they were expecting and want to share that joy with me. Moms who are willing to open up to me as they've suffered things like a miscarriage that they know are going to make life difficult for their child too. And the reason they're willing to do that is because I've created a relationship with them. I've taken the time to ask how they are, to know what they do for a living, to know what their spouse does for a living, and to really think how that affects their child and to be there for them. My third item that I want to share today is, I'll show you it in pieces because that's kind of important to the illustration. So it's a flashlight, but you see 3 different pieces here. The pieces represent kind of groups of parents that you might be working with. And I really want to encourage you to think not of groups of parents, not of the parents who are always involved and the parents who are difficult to engage, but how all of those parents are a part of your school community. And so when you put them all together, there's great opportunity and things kind of click. this is really important, especially with my background as an ESL teacher, that there are schools that I've worked with who, get really excited. We're going to have a group for our Spanish-speaking parents. We're going to have a group for our parents who don't speak a different language, and we'll make sure that everybody has all the information then. And that's a really nice idea. But the thing is that that's really involving parents. That's giving them information. And not to be kind of silly about it, but that's really kind of so 20 years ago. Now, we really want to focus on engaging those families in important and relevant ways in the school. They can be such an important boon to any activity that you're doing, as well as they can really understand how to support their child instead of just getting a newsletter once a month or coming to a PTO meeting occasionally. From my experience, prior to being an ESL teacher, I started out as classified ESL staff, and I was the school translator. And the way that I addressed this in the school was we didn't have a separate meeting for parents who had a second language or who had a different first language, really. We had one meeting school-wide, and I would translate in real time whatever was going on in the full meeting. And that really gave the families that I worked with on a daily basis an opportunity to be more deeply involved in what was going on in the school and to really engage in their children's education in a way that they would not have been able to do if they were just given information on the side in their language. And so I really encourage you to think not only about making sure that your school is a welcoming place and that everybody comes in and has an opportunity to interact, but think about how you can make that happen, particularly looking at families who may have a different language, families who may not have had the best experience. Sometimes it's okay to have opportunities where families come into the school and really just have an opportunity to learn each other with a little bit of learning, to meet each other with a little bit of learning kind of mixed in. Family literacy nights, family math nights are great ways to do this and build community in your school, but also to give families an opportunity to learn a little bit more and support their children in a stronger way. I think with that, my time is kind of wrapping up. So if I can check with our host, we'd love to take a couple of questions if you have been tweeting them in. Okay. That's fun. We may have some questions in just a bit, but in the meantime, I will pass to Brittany Howell, my colleague here at NCFL. Brittany has joined our team as a literacy and family learning specialist from very recent classroom experience, and she will share a little bit with you about some of our experience with teachers as well as engaging families in literacy together.
Hi, welcome everybody. I'm thrilled to be here in my pajamas today for PD and PJs. Patricia did a great job introducing me. I appreciate that. I am a family and literacy specialist here at NCFL, and I also work on a variety of projects here with us. I'm going to be using the same approach as she did with my bag. And I'm going to start by pulling out one of my favorite things, which is one of our Wonder Jars. It's kind of big, so it's a little hard to see. I'll hold it up. But one of my favorite part of my job is hearing what all of you have to say in our online community and through social media and on our blogs, etc. And one of the biggest things that I see is the importance of engaging students in wonder and inquiry, using hands-on learning for exploration and doing maker activities both inside and out of the classroom. This jar is nothing special. It's full of wonderful objects that you can collect to put in, that then when you have extra time, or maybe you're launching a lesson, launching a unit, an inquiry unit, you can pull something out and you can model for the students how to ask good questions, how to wonder, and really embrace their creativity. There's nothing special in here. It's things that you could just get anywhere at any store and throw in there. One thing that I like to do was my kids would always be finding things on the playground and bringing them up to me and wondering about them. And now looking back, I think if I could have put them in a jar like this, we could have had our own classroom wonder jar that we could have held on to and explored and then done more research about. This also leads to another really good topic of project-based learning, which is a huge trend right now in education that helps to foster inquiry and wondering and giving students ownership of their learning and giving them their voice. Whether they're coming up with the questions, or maybe they're finding their resources, or they're researching the question and then they're deciding how they're going to present it. That's all putting the learning back in their hands and having the teacher be more of a facilitator role, which is so important. And sometimes it can feel very difficult to do that, but the reward is so great when it's put back to the student. The next item that I have in my bag is a notebook. Patricia also talked about the importance of connecting with families, both home and at school. And this notebook kind of serves a multi-purpose. One being the importance of giving your students the opportunity to write and to share their thoughts, both about their wonderings, but also that relates it back to the informational text as well, and the importance that that's now having in our classroom. But with your journal, the students, one way to connect with home is having a family message journal. This could be something that you do daily. It could be something that you do weekly, maybe other week, whatever works for your schedule. I would have my students, we would brainstorm every week on what things we did, what we had learned, and then they would also add their personal touches, their favorite parts of the week, maybe a goal that they have to incorporate goal setting. Whatever it is that you want to incorporate so that it meets your needs as with your classroom. But then they would write a letter to their parents. And not only is that giving the parents a personal form of communication with their student, it's also giving the student the chance to use their voice to explain. It could be a formative assessment for teachers too, explain what they have learned throughout the week and put it in their own words. So it's almost their own newsletter home to their family. And then I would ask the families to then write back if they could. This might sometimes be in the form of a letter. It might be a picture drawing back. It might be directly in response to them. It was really open-ended. So it gave the freedom, again, to the families for them to feel comfortable to show their excitement. They could also write their concerns. It just became a very open, free-flowing way of communication. But when I think about the family message journal, I also think about all the different ways that technology has changed the way we can communicate with parents. You know, it used to be that sending a note home, either in a journal or attaching it to their backpack, however it would be to get it home, was the only way, maybe having a weekly newsletter. But now it's so much more. Now you have blogs. There are so many teachers with great classroom blogs that I just love looking through. And again, I see all of those things coming out, the wonder, the curiosity, the exploration. And that is also practicing those digital reading skills, which is so important to incorporate. So whether you have a classroom blog, or maybe you have a classroom Twitter account, or a class Facebook account, or Instagram, that's another way to showcase parents what's going on in your classroom and give them live live feedback. You know, this is what we're doing right now. Take a picture of the kids sitting and sharing their learning together. You know, tweet out really significant and quotes that you hear students make. In addition to that, you might, I always encourage families to invite people in. Invite your families in, like Patricia was talking about. Maybe it's for a school literacy night, but maybe it's instead to just work in your classroom, to work with a small group, to volunteer. But forming that initial relationship so that they feel comfortable enough to do that in your classroom is so important. And Patricia gave us some great keys to doing that. But you want them to feel like they can approach you with any sort of questions, but you also want it to feel like it's in their hands also. So those are just some ideas of ways that you can build, bridge the gap. And going back to wondering, another great way to bring up is through wonder. Your kids come home from school and, you know, you're asking, what did you learn today? Or, you know, maybe what did you wonder? What did you work on? And they share that with you, and that leads to open conversations. And, you know, you could do more exploration at home through research, or maybe you have your own hands-on activities, or you're taking a walk and you see something unfamiliar. All of those leads to learning and connecting the school and the home. My third item are these two little chips, and I chose them because they're really kind of open to your interpretation. But one thing is, when you're working with parents and you're thinking about, you know, they're coming from all varieties of background, and they're coming from all different places in their lives, and you're really embracing what they have to offer. But you're also trying to take all of these generations and do something together around literacy. So one great thing to do is storytelling. So you could do this in a variety of ways, but these are just like two chips, and there's a whole bunch of them, but they have different pictures. This one is a house and a tree, of course. And you would draw, you know, 3, 5, however many out of a bag, and you would use those to tell a story. The great thing about storytelling is there are no rules. The students can tell the story, the parents can tell the story, they could tell the story together. You could write it down, they could act it out. But there's also, it's a great thing to do, you know, so often, unfortunately, books aren't, you might not have the books at the home that you would hope for the student, but you can always use your imagination and tell stories. And it's also a great way to keep your family traditions alive. And that is always so important today, too, having those face-to-face conversations, stepping away from technology for a minute, even though it's great, and having those face-to-face times with your family, doing things like storytelling, and having conversations daily. Another thing is just encouraging your families to read every day. And it doesn't, while we would love for them to sit down and pick up a book and read together every day, reading can happen in a variety of different ways. It can happen, you know, so many times we're on the go somewhere and we're reading signs out loud, or reading things on our phone or the iPad, or we're listening to stories. Students are always taking in what's around them. So those are all important ways to engage learners across generations. So those are my 3 items. We have some resources we wanted to share with you today as well. But before we do that, I'm going to reach out and take some questions, if any have been tweeted in. I don't hear any right now. I'm going to go ahead and hand it back to Emily to talk about some resources, and then maybe at the end, if we get those questions, we'll go ahead and take some of them, tweet them in. We're live tweeting. I have enjoyed reading what you have sent so far. Thank you for joining us, and I'll hand it back to Emily.
Hey, everybody. If you've stepped away to grab a bite of lunch or pick up a soda, stretch your legs, come back, because I've got a couple of secrets to let you in on. To end our session, we wanted to share a few resources and then I'll close with 2 secrets. The resources that we think could be most interesting to you today, a couple come to mind. One is In Camino, which can be found on NCFL's website, familieslearning.org. In Camino is a suite of videos and tools to help you have conversations with your students' parents about college going. Set the expectation of college and career readiness. So the In Camino resources break down that conversation a little bit and help you approach it in very relationable, real-world ways. So bookmark that. The second is to make sure that you're aware of something that's brand new from NCFL. It's known as Family Trails, and it offers real family voices, blog posts, gorgeous pictures from families all across the country depicting how they're learning together through adventure. And the idea is that we're inspiring families to learn from one another and showing what this looks like in the park, on the quintessential road trip for families that choose to do so, what it can and likely looks like at the dinner table. So we break down adventure in all kinds of different settings, and most importantly, bring those family voices to life. If you're a member of the audience today or a participant today and you engage your family in these ways, we absolutely welcome you to join us through perhaps becoming a family ambassador, or lower hanging fruit would be to submit some of your pictures to us on Instagram. We promise to honor them and share them with our entire growing community. Now for our 2 secrets. We know many of you joining in today are participants in Wonderopolis, and we thank you so much for sharing the power of inquiry and questions and learning through high interest topics with everyone that you are involved with. One secret is Wonderopolis will soon be 5 years old. It's so hard to believe. It's been such a fast journey. October 4th. We will be holding a virtual birthday party and invite you to join us there, where we'll be having celebrations, we'll be having shout outs to all of you, and we really look forward to involving the entire community. It will be wonder-filled. Can't promise cake, but we can promise wonder. The second secret is very apropos to our conversation today. Later in the fall, we will be having a family resource guide attached to Wonder and Wonderopolis come out through the generosity of a private partnership with the Dollar General Literacy Foundation. The resources have been developed through the minds behind Wonderopolis, and we brought in some special help from voices that we know have your respect and trust, and that is the voices from Peter and Paul Reynolds and the Fable Vision team. So you can look forward to some fantastic resources. We're calling it the Family Guide to Wonder. They'll all be available, again, free of charge, thanks to philanthropic resources, and you heard it here first. We hope that's whetting your appetite. Fable Vision has put the best of their illustrators. We've combined our imaginations to work together, and we look forward to some really exciting conversations that we hope will be held at dinner tables and at bedtimes and during morning routines, all about wonder. Finally, if you're traveling in the next 6 or 7 weeks, we will have a presence at NCTE in Minneapolis and would love to meet you and speak with you face-to-face and see what we can do together in the name of families, literacy, and learning. If there are any final questions, I'm happy to entertain them. Otherwise, we'll throw it back to the host.
I just added a question there for you.
Okay.
Where, oh, I'm sorry. Hold on one second. It hasn't popped up completely yet, but it is for those that don't know much about Wonderopolis. Could you describe it just a little bit more about what it is and how it works?
Absolutely. So Wonderopolis is a free literacy resource that's available via web as well as text messaging, the app that Dana mentioned, currently all available free of charge. We, through Wonderopolis, are approaching literacy, reading, writing, and critical thinking through the guise of wonder. We offer a Wonder of the Day every single day. It's published between 5 and 6 a.m. It's a curious question. Today's is surrounding how pirates really talk, because it's National Pirate Day. If you're not a big pirate fan, you might not have known that. So we tap into what's really intriguing to all of us, adults and children alike. My dream with Wonderopolis is that we spark the child in all of us, and we remember that learning can and absolutely should be high interest and be fun. So you can find the Wonder of the Day. It has a literacy passage as well as a relevant video that our specialists have handpicked, along with really strong literacy resources, expansion activities, oftentimes maker activities, framing questions, differentiated vocabulary words. And I'd like to give a shout out to our Wonderopolis community and one of the original leads behind Wonderopolis that found us 5 or so years ago, Maria Kaplan, for helping us approach the vocabulary section in a way where we're differentiating vocabulary among age and grade levels. So a huge shout out to her. We continue growing our content, again, thanks to private philanthropy that gives us the means to do so. But just as important, or more important, we continue honing what that content is based on what we hear from you. We learn from you, with you, as well as your students, and continue to tweak our approaches and come up with new ideas. So share with us, what you find valuable, what your questions are about Wonderopolis, and we promise to not only take those questions, but do something with them. Anything else?
Yep, I just put up a new one that says, when can we expect this resource? The one on Coaching Wonder.
You can expect it. We don't have a firm launch date, but you can expect it certainly before November 1st. So if our technology and as well as printers collaborate with us, as we hope that they do, it'll be available sometime before National Family Literacy Day 2015, which is November 1st.
Okay, and I just added one from Carolyn Hilarious, and it is, what is the best way to keep parents of high schoolers engaged in their learning?
Thank you, Carolyn. A really strong way is to talk about, again, the high interest subjects and what the aspiration of that high schooler is in their life. Is the high schooler, beginning to have conversations about different careers? If not, go back to what their interests are. If they're sports minded, start having conversations about what's involved in that, different vocabulary, and approach whatever subject matter or content you'd like, again, through what interests them. I certainly understand the intent of the question, the best way, but another kernel of thought that I will leave you with is the best way is to have multiple approaches to keep parents engaged in the education of their children. So if one first approach does not work, don't let that hinder you from moving to plan B or plan C, or sometimes braiding them all together. So we find with high schoolers that they're often turning their attention to what comes next. If it's not college and university, some type of vocation, and approaching it through that lens. I'd be happy to talk through one more if you'd like.
Excellent. We just had one last one posted, and this is from Kristen Zemke, and it's wondering if Emily could talk a little about media literacy and how that plays into the Wonderopolis site.
Thanks so much, Kristen, and great point and great question that you're asking. So we approach our content through a variety of modalities for appeal as well as application in the real world. So as mentioned, the Wonder of the Day has not only a written passage, which is obviously so important and foundational, but also the video, the social media community, and then something that we're so proud of, we invite everyone interfacing with Wonderopolis to leave a comment about what they're thinking. Has the Wonder of the Day prompted more questions? Do they have something really clever to share with us? We love funny comments too. And our promise back to every user is when they share that comment, when they share that thought with us, that Wonderopolis responds mysteriously and intriguingly from behind the curtain to honor that thought, to encourage the child to continue thinking and wondering and applying what they know. So there's the digital writing component, and we often have, really extensive conversations with learners and wanderers of all ages. It's great fun, but what you also need to know is within our walls, behind the Wonderopolis curtain, we take it very, very seriously. And our commitment is a response within 24 hours, and certainly responses that nurture and nudge the power of wonder. Anything else? Great. Well, we will throw it back to our wonderful host and thank everyone and look forward to more conversations.
Excellent. Thank you so much. We really, really appreciate your participating today. This has been another wonderful session, and please look for the next sessions, which will be starting in about 15 minutes. I'll be placing up a new overlay here that should show what the next sessions are. All right, everybody. Thanks and goodbye.